Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Becca and welcome back to the start of a new vlog. If you clicked on this video, I'm assuming you did, probably because of the title, and that is what I read as a librarian. This is my last week as a librarian. I'm leaving the library and I'm not going to go into the specific details of that. I may talk about it a little bit in the a little later in the video, but right now I'm not going to. I just want to talk about the fact that I love libraries. I've been working in a library since I was in college, so about 8 years now, and before that I was a frequent library user, would go every single week with my family. And once I leave the library, I'll be doing it again. I'll be probably like a every Saturday type of library user. So this video is going to kind of be a vlog of me taking you with me for my last week as a librarian. It'll be emotional. I hope you're prepared for that. But also I want to talk about the books that I've read as a librarian. I do want to disclaim here that every experience is going to be different in different library systems, and as librarians like across the country and across the world, I'm specifically talking about my experience, so this might be different from yours. These books also are not things you have to read in order to become a librarian. If you're trying to figure out whether you want to be a librarian, this might be a good video to watch if you're interested in seeing like what kind of books that you might read, or that you want to read, or that might help you. But it's not like a list of books that if you're going to be a librarian, you need to be reading these books. That is not what this video is. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into the books that I'm currently reading. And I think each day this week, I'm going to talk about a different kind of subject when it comes to books that I've read. So book club books and trainings that I've taken that I've had to read books for, and then kind of like books that I've read in order to kind of just keep track of like what's going on in the library world, things like that. So let's go ahead and jump into the books that I'm currently reading. First, I want to talk about my audiobook, which is Transcendent Kingdom by Ya Jessie. This is a novel about a woman who is kind of dealing with her past and how it affects her present and how it will affect her future. We learn in the novel that her older brother has died from an opioid overdose, and this happens pre-book, and that her mother falls into a severe depression. Our main character is also a scientist, and I can't remember specifically what kind of scientist she is, but I'm pretty sure it has something to do with like brain function, cognition. I don't remember. So this is also about how mental illness and addiction has affected her career. She also talks a lot about religion, which I think is very interesting because her mother is very religious and she kind of pretty traditional, and how that has affected her own life and how she sees the world and her life as a scientist as well. And I'm really enjoying it so far. I listened to about 2.5 hours of it the other night because I couldn't sleep, and it's a great book. It's a great listen, and I'm really just interested to see how it's going to end. I don't read any descriptions because this was just a book that was on one of my reading challenges. So I don't know where this book is going, but I'm really interested to find out. And then I'm also reading 3 other books. First, I have A Heart of Blood and Ashes. This is by Mila Vane, and it is the first book in the A Gathering of Dragons series. This is a fantasy romance. I actually came across this book so I was browsing in the news section, and the second book was in the romance section, and I saw it and I was like, oh, this looks interesting. So I put the first book on hold. I've been super into fantasy romance this year. I've been reading a ton, and this shockingly is very heavy on the fantasy aspect. I'm actually kind of getting a lot of Game of Thrones vibes in the very beginning. So like our main character, his name is Maddox. He kind of like reminds me of the Dothraki, so very interesting so far. Heavy on the fantasy. I'm here for it. So the next book that I am currently reading is Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. So for my work book club, so the library book club, this is our pick that we will be discussing in May. So I'm getting a head start on it. This also will be the first book that I'll be reading as a customer and not a librarian who moderates the discussion. Currently, me and 2 other librarians rotate with moderating the discussion. So yeah, well, I'll actually be having my last book club discussion on Wednesday, and I'll definitely be talking more about book club and book club picks and whatnot then. So far, I've only read the prologue, and I think I'm going to get a lot from this book. I also bought this copy used, so it's like it's got the person's name on it. And then, like, there were so many annotations in this book, which is so exciting. So I'm kind of like annotating beside their own annotations, and I think it's just fun to see. And then the last book that I'm currently making my way through, oh, by the way, I'm not planning on finishing any of these books this week. I might finish Transcendent Kingdom, and I mean, it would be nice to finish A Heart of Blood and Ashes, but I don't know that I will. This book is actually a lot longer than I was expecting it to be. It's over 500 pages, so we'll see about that. So the last book that I'm reading is Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second book in the Stormlight Archives series, which is like the highest of high fantasy. So those are the 4 books that I'm currently reading. These are in no way books that I'm reading because I'm a librarian. I want to say here too, like, this might be shocking to you, but you don't have to read to be a librarian. I feel like you should, but I have plenty of coworkers who, like, you know, they read, but they don't read anywhere near as much as me, which is completely fine. Like, being a librarian isn't a competition about who can read the most. So definitely don't feel intimidated about the size of the books or how many books or the fact that I'm reading 4 books at once. Again, like, that's just how I read. It has nothing to do with me being a librarian. Although I guess you could say if I weren't a librarian, if I hadn't spent like 8-ish years in the library system, in the library world, would I read 4 books at once? I don't know. I will see you soon for another update. See you later. Hello everyone, happy Tuesday. Sorry, we're gonna be in the same angle today. I want to go ahead and talk about more library things. So yesterday, after I recorded my intro, I learned that this week is actually National Library Week, which is like a crazy coincidence that it also happens to be my last week. I want to talk a little bit more about kind of what I read as a librarian and why I read these books. This might be a little bit more in depth than some might want, so if you're not interested in this part, I am in all of my current videos actually I've been putting the chapters, the timestamps down below in the description so you can skip forward if you want. But right now I'm going to talk about reader's advisory, so you might want to grab a drink. This might be a long explanation. So to me, as a customer, what reader's advisory is, you would come to the library or a bookstore and ask the librarian or library worker to recommend you a book. So a lot of people think that reader's advisory is just recommending books. To me, recommending a book is the end of reader's advisory. It's the last part. Reader's advisory to me, and again, I know like some people view it differently, but to me it is knowing what's out there and being familiar with different genres and kind of the basics of each genre as much as possible, because you can't know everything. And then talking with the patron in order to find the book that fits them, what they're looking for. For the most part, people are looking for books, of course, that they want to read. And so I would say the majority of people, especially at my location, being like the location that it is and the type of customers that we have, most of our patrons are looking for bestsellers, a lot of James Patterson pretty much. Currently, because of the pandemic, we are doing reader's advisory a bit different. Customers can like send us an email or a message or whatever and say, I want 5 books. I like these authors or this genre. So reader's advisory is kind of something that it's going to be different for each librarian. I want, before I decided to, leave the library and change careers, I wanted to be that person who, like, my coworkers could come to and say, like, oh, this person is looking for a read-alike for this book. Do you know anything? Because first of all, I love reading, obviously, and I love recommending books, and I love talking about books. So reader's advisory is something that I always really loved, and the more I could do it, the happier I was. I worked at Barnes & Noble for about 6 months, and they don't really do reader's advisory like as in-depth as librarians could, mainly because like they don't have the time and the resources, but I loved doing it there too. So it's definitely gonna be different person to person, but I took pride in trying to be like the best reader's advisor as that I could. So because of that, I like to read across genres and to try to get a feel for each genre. I did a lot of trainings on like subgenres and things like that, and it also helps like being a booktuber. I had a book blog for maybe 2 years, and then being on Bookstagram, I pretty much like know like the big ones, all of the bestsellers that are coming out, and the ones that have a lot of buzz. I already got a good foot there, which is different for again, like there are some librarians who don't read, and that's completely fine. I mean, I don't think it's fine, but like if they can do it, if they can do their job without having to read, good for them, I guess. But there are, like I said, I like to read across genres and get a feel for everything that's out there, which is why I am a very eclectic reader. Like, I do have my favorite genres, but I also try to read out of my comfort zone, just so that I have a better feel. Like, if a customer comes to the desk and they're like, I want some lit fic about like a family that has a lot of drama. It's like, oh, okay, like how much drama are you talking about? Like, you think Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng? Some knowledge, I think, is very important. So things that like I normally would not have read. Like currently I'm reading Transcendent Kingdom. It's not really, while I'm liking it, it's not something that I would ever choose for myself. I mean, it's also for a reading challenge that I'm doing, but it's something that I'm reading also because it's popular and it was a Goodreads award nominee. And the author is very, has a lot of high praise, so I feel like that's something that, some library patrons would ask for or ask for read-alikes for, and so I just think, for me, I really enjoy having that knowledge and being able to help patrons the best way I can when it comes to reading, because that's what I want to do. Some other things that I might not read, I'm not a huge thriller fan. I don't read that much, although, like, please recommend me, a really good thriller, because I'm still searching for that really good one. Like, When No One Was Watching by Alyssa Cole, fantastic. I read One by One this year by Ruth Ware, her most recent, release. Ruth Ware is a very popular author. I have read one of her other books. I own another one, so I think it's just good to, like, know what's out there. For me personally, because I know, and I read a lot of YA, not recently really, but like typically, previous years I read a lot of YA, so recommending books to teens was like my absolute favorite thing to do. Although we don't have a ton of teens at my location just because of the area, but we did have, like a group of girls who would come in like every night, every Wednesday night, every Tuesday night. And one time they were like, oh, like I'm looking for a book about blah blah blah, or help me find some bestsellers in the YA section. I was like, yes, please, I will take you over there. Let's get you a stack of books. So like staying up to date with new authors and authors' new books, like Renee Watson, Love is a Revolution, just another book that I read this year. And then also, just trying to stay up to date with, what do people want to read? What are they looking for? Like more diverse reads in specific genres. In romance, the Brown Sisters trilogy by Talia Hibbert. Still have to read the third one. But like staying up to date with those types of things. And then also finding books at the same time that you really love. I think another genre that a lot of people look for is historical fiction. I had a customer once who was like, I want a book that's similar to The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. books. Like, oh please, there's so many. And of course, you know, I want to recommend my favorite books. Like, okay, this isn't technically like The Nightingale, but it is like a World War II, the Guernsey Literary and Potato Pie Society. Love. Hi everyone, happy Wednesday. Today I do go back into work, but I do also have some work that I have to do before I go in. But today I have my last book club as a librarian. I've been like crying off and on. It's just like, not that I'm upset or sad. Well, I'm a little sad. Or like, and I am like a little nervous, but like not crazy nervous. I'm just like so emotional. So before we get started in what I want to talk about today, I do want to update, because this is a reading vlog, so I'm going to update you on my reading of A Heart of Blood and Ashes by Mila Vane. And I read quite a bit of this yesterday, like nearly 200 pages. I'm really enjoying it. I don't know if I told you what this book is about. So it's basically a fantasy romance, heavy on the fantasy, about this world where our main characters, okay, so our main male character, the hero, Maddox, his parents are executed at the beginning of this book. They are the king and queen of his people, the Parsathians, and so he's going back to, like, because he's like fighting in a like war, and so he's going back home to his country land, the Burning Plains, to, you know, because they have to pick a new king and queen, or king anyway, or ruler. And so he's going back, and on the way there he comes across the kingdom that murdered his parents. The ruler there, his daughter, is being, you know, sent across to the land to marry into this other kingdom, you know, for an alliance, whatever. And so the main character Maddox believes that she was really a key player in why his parents were executed, so he like intercepts their route and kidnaps her, but really she has been basically imprisoned by her father all her life. So she wants to marry this main character Maddox so that they can have an alliance, as she's technically the rightful ruler, because this fantasy world is very heavily like matriarchal. So her kingdom, Sissia, is a matriarchal kingdom, and the only reason that her father is ruling in her stead is because people don't know that she's alive. She's kind of been kept in secret until now. And so like her father's just really awful, her brothers are terrible, and in the beginning of the book she kills one of her brothers. So very I said on Instagram that I was really happy because this reminds me a lot of Game of Thrones. Like this, our main character and his people kind of remind me of the Dothraki, and because like their horses are so important to them and blah blah blah, and it just like, it reminds me of Game of Thrones. So I was saying that like this is not as like violently explicit. Like I have not come across an explicitly like in-depth detailed description of torture or rape or specific violent scenes. There is one scene in here if you are triggered or if you don't like reading about animals' deaths. Yeah, an animal dies in this, but like it was a good death. We'll say that. But so that's like the most violent, I would say. There are some like zombie type animals, they call them revenants, that are like, they fight them, but like other than that it's not very violent so far, but it is still a little bit crass or crude. What I really love about this book so far is that it's kind of better than Game of Thrones, but like in this book all women, if they can be, are warriors. So the Parsathians, which Maddox is of his people, like all of the women are warriors. Like everyone does everything. Everyone hunts, everyone farms, everyone is a warrior. And then for our main character, her name is Yvonne, or Yvonne, I don't know how you would say it, like Yvonne, but like with an E, Yvonne. So she is supposed to be a warrior queen, but because she's been imprisoned her entire life, like, she's very weak, and so she's kind of building strength, you know, she's getting better. So, and she comes from a line of warrior queens, which is pretty cool. I also just, like, I feel like this book is very sex positive, but the only thing that's really kind of struggling is that there are a lot of, like, you know, world type terms and words that I can't pronounce, and there's like a ton of animals in this book. Like, they talk a lot about different types of animals, and at this point I'm not even trying to keep track of what they are. So that's pretty much the only complaint I have so far. I think I like, and this is a romance novel, and I normally don't even tab romance novels, but there are some things that were just like said, and like, this is a very well written book. I really like it. And also, like, their religious system is pretty much based on females. Like, the creator of, like, the world itself is a woman, and then it is a man who kind of creates, like, the sea, and the way he does it is kind of, like, crude and crass, but so there's, like, that god who is male, and then the other god that they talk about who, like, the Parsathians, like, are really, like, they worship a lot, is also a woman. So I'm just like, I love it so much. If you like Game of Thrones, I would recommend this book, because I mean, like, if you're reading Game of Thrones, it's super explicit, so there's no reason why you wouldn't be okay with, like, the explicit scenes in this, which are basically just the sex scenes that are super explicit. So far, like I said, I'm only, like, a little over halfway through, so there could be, like, a really violent scene at the end of this book, and I'm just don't know. So far, really enjoying this book. Taking me by surprise, really like the writing style, and just, it's so interesting, and like yesterday I just could not stop reading it. Okay, I just changed angles so this vlog is a little bit more interesting, but now I want to talk about, I had the opportunity, the privilege to start a book club. We already have an established book club at my location, but it was adults, and so I wanted to establish a book club that was for people who read young adult books. So teenagers, young adults, you know, and I called it the Forever Young Adult Book Club, which we stole from another system. And unfortunately it didn't really take off. And this is something that I will complain about my library, because when this vlog goes up, I'll no longer be working there, and there's nothing they can do about it. I really hate how we advertise. Like, we can't have social media pages specific to our locations, and I think that really hurts us. Marketing, whatever you want to call them, like, they do well, but there could be so many. I think they try to focus too much on being, like, the same across every single branch, but I don't think that's wise, because not every community is the same. So I feel like it would be better if we were able to have our own social media pages and things like that. So anyway, rant over about that. So it didn't take off. However, it was me, my sister, and my cousin, and we've been still meeting as a book club even though we've ended this one at the library. So it came out, you know, it turned out okay, you know? So I just want to talk about the books that we read and how I organized this book club. So, you know, your traditional book club, you read one book and you discuss it. But I wanted to talk more about a lot of books, because I just love talking about books, obviously. And so each month I had a topic or subject or genre, and I would pick 2 to 3 books that fell into that topic or genre, and then we would discuss them. And like, I would read all of them, but I was like, for, you know, members, like, you can read one, you don't even have to read any of them if you don't want to, if you just want to talk about the subject or other books that you've read in this genre that you really like, whatever. So the first one we did was about the immigrant experience, and we read American Street by Ibi Zoboi, Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi, and The Sun is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. And yeah, so those were some great books that I'm glad that I read because of this book club, although I had read Persepolis before. And then the month after that we did mysteries, and so I wanted to have like a good mixture of types of mystery, so we did The Diviners by Librarian, because it's kind of like a paranormal mystery, and I thought that it would bridge genres so that multiple people would be more excited about it. And then I chose Sadie by Courtney Summers, which is a bit of a darker, like, thriller suspense mystery, and then Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, which is a bit lighter, in my opinion. The month after that we did horror, because I wanted to, like, have the participants, you know, participate in picking our books, and so we did horror because my sister really loves to read horror, and the books that we read for that were The Girl from the Well by Rin Chupeco, Sacrifice Box by Martin Stewart, and the graphic novel Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. Fantastic, except for Sacrifice Box. And then the month after that we did space fiction, so science fiction that's taking place in space, and I chose Across the Universe by Beth Revis and The Disasters by M.K. England. Then after that we did realistic fiction, and I chose Radio Silence by Alice Oseman, With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo, and A Very Large Expanse of Sea by Tahereh Mafi. All of these books I might not have picked up otherwise, but I'm glad that I did. And the last book club that we had, because it had been a couple of months and we decided that it needed to be rethought about and everything like that, we did fantasy. And again, I only did 2 books because it was going to be our last book club. And so we read Nimona by Noelle Stevenson and Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I tried to kind of pick a lot of diverse types of books, ones that people weren't already reading. That was my experience with starting a book club at my library, though it didn't take off. I mean, it still worked out because me, my sister, and my cousin, we still have our book club and we meet every month. It was an experience and it worked out for me, though it didn't work out for the library, but it was fun and it was an experience and I was glad for the opportunity. Here we have another angle for you so I can talk about my other book club. This is the library's book club that was already established before I even started working there, and I kind of just joined as someone who moderates the discussion once another librarian left. And so some books that I read for that, we did read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. The last book that we read, so our discussion for tonight is for The Feather Thief. And that is by Kirk Wallace Johnson. It's a nonfiction true crime book, and I hated it. We read The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates. Some books that we read during COVID, we read Educated by Tara Westover, which I also really enjoyed. We read The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton, which is a classic. I led that discussion, and whew, it was a tough one. Another book that we read was A Woman Is No Man by Ataf Room, which was a great book to read, I think, for a book club. We read The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. Again, did not like that book. I did not read all of it. I read like the first maybe 30 pages and decided to DNF it because it was just not my book, but I still attended that meeting so that I could hear why everyone loved that book besides me. We read The Library Book by Susan Orlean, which is another nonfiction kind of true crime book, but that one I actually liked. Very good book. I would highly recommend it if you are a library employee or if you just love libraries as much as I do. And those are kind of the books that we've read in the past couple of months. Yeah, so my next book, my first book as a customer instead of a librarian, is Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. So I'm still attending, but it will be really sad to not be a part of the book club as a librarian. So those are the books that I've read for book clubs for the library. Does that mean you're going to read them if you're a librarian? No. I think it's a good kind of idea of what kind of things that you could do, and also if you want to start a book club at your library or just amongst friends who read or over the internet, whatever, these are some great ways to do it. Definitely. I've really enjoyed having book club over Zoom, I will say that, only because like I was pretty new to the book club, so it's really nice to be on Zoom where you can see everyone's names with their faces, so now I actually know everyone's name, so that's really nice. Alright, so I'm off to start doing some telework, and then I will be in the branch, and I will see you later. Alright friends, I'm all set up for my work book club, my last book club. I'm really excited to talk about this book that I hated. And I'm sure I'm gonna be the only one who hated this book because it's surprising. I don't know why I find this surprising, but most of the ladies in our book club prefer nonfiction. So anyway, I'm sure they all loved this book. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get started with that. Also, today at work, was the last day that I got to work with my friend Liz. Well, we don't really technically work with each other. She's leaving as I'm coming in. It was our last day together. So I went in a little early so that we could chat, and then we took some selfies. So I miss you already, Liz. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and jump on this Zoom. Hello everyone, and happy Thursday. Today's been a very productive at-home day for me. I didn't really have much of any work to do except looking at emails, and pretty much all I did was recommend some books for the library book club for like later in the year. As a customer, I will still be able to do that, but yeah, so I recommended some books that I'm really excited to read. Not a single one of them I already own. So I want to go ahead and talk about today's theme / subject. Oh, real quick, let me just update you. Last night for book club, how I said beforehand, I'm probably going to be the only one who didn't like the book. I was the only one who didn't like the book. Today's theme / subject is kind of like trainings that I've taken as a librarian and the books that I've had to read for them. So previous to the pandemic, I think they actually stopped doing this. But we had genre boot camps, which were just like a training where you read books from different genres and then you went and talked about it. Basically a book club. Anyway, it's supposed to give you like a feel for the genre so that you're better prepared to recommend books from those genres. But anyway, when I was cleaning out my mailbox at work, I came across the packets. So I can actually tell you the very specific books that I read for this training, and this was one training. So the 3 themes that we had for this training were picture book biography specifically, graphic novel biography and memoirs, and then audiobook memoirs and biographies. So let's start with the picture books. The Right Word, Roger and His Thesaurus by Jen Bryant and Melissa Sweet. Schomburg, The Man Who Built a Library by Carol Boston Weatherford, illustrated by Eric Velasquez. I did read Strange Fruit, Billie Holiday, and The Power of a Protest Song by Gary Golio, illustrated by Charlotte Riley Webb. The Shape of the World, A Portrait of Frank Lloyd Wright by E.L. Going, illustrated by Lauren Stringer. Muddy, The Story of Blues Legend Muddy Waters by Michael Maheen, illustrated by Evan Turk. And those are the ones that I specifically remember reading. And then for the graphic novel memoirs and biographies, I actually really like this. I really enjoy reading graphic novels, and I don't enjoy reading memoirs or biographies, so this is a great way for me to do that. One of them that I read was Agatha, The Real Life of Agatha Christie by Anne Martinetti, Guillaume Lebeau, and Alexander Frank. The Best We Could Do by T. Now I remember talking about how to pronounce their names during the meeting, but I don't remember how to pronounce it now, but T. Bowie? California Dreamin', Cass Elliot Before the Mamas and the Papas by Penelope Bagot. I read Imagine Wanting Only This by Kristen Ratke. The Imposter's Daughter by Laurie Sandel. March by John Lewis. We only had to read the first one, but I read the entire trilogy because I really enjoyed it, and that one's I highly recommend. And then some Lucy Nicely books, something new. For the audiobook memoirs and biographies, we had to read or listen to Born a Crime by Trevor Noah, which luckily I'd actually already read that by the time I had to do this training. Really enjoyed that. And then we also got to pick about other things. I listened to When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. I think those are the only ones that I actually read for this training. I did try to read The Fact of a Body by Alexandria Marzano-Lesnevich, and I didn't like it. So those are kind of books that I've had to read for trainings. And then I just want to talk about this real quick because it's not required or anything. It's just like voluntary. We are currently going through a training called Project Ready, which is specifically for librarians and teachers. I'll actually put the link in the description box because it's open for anyone. Anyone can do it, and I think it's like highly valuable material, especially like the first half of it is pretty much applicable to life in general. But it is a like anti-racism training. Because of that, I did buy Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram X. Kendi, and this is a book that I'm going to be glad to be making my way through because I won't be able to finish the Project Ready training. I think I'm gonna stop today with the books that I read as a librarian, and just tomorrow I want to talk more about, I'm going to spill some tea about why I'm leaving the library. So stay tuned for that. I'll see you later. Hello everyone, happy Friday. Today is the day. So I'm not wrapping up the video right now, but I do have some updates for you. I figured since this is a reading vlog, let's talk about the fact that I finished A Heart of Blood and Ashes by Mila Vane. I gave this book 5 stars. I really freaking loved it. There are some things that I didn't love, but I'm like gut feeling this is a book that I just really enjoyed. I'm giving it 5 stars. I have read some reviews on Goodreads where some people were comparing it to Game of Thrones and that they felt like it was a ripoff, but I'm just like, I think this is better. I think obviously that very different audiences. If you're a fan of Game of Thrones and you also like romance, I highly recommend this. This is a book that was written for you. I think it's so great. It's got that element of kind of a force that's across the sea or across the world that had been on like our land and then is coming back. Like they've heard rumors that this force is coming back and it's coming to destroy everything. So it's got that kind of element to it, and then it's got the different element of like tribes, like so similar to the houses. So there's like the Dothraki, and then the Scythians I would kind of compare to now I can't think of what their house name is. Okay, but anyway, you get the picture. So there's different tribes, different houses, different rulers, different kingdoms, and I think that's very comparable as well. And then you've got like the revenants, which are kind of like zombie things. So they're like the what do they call them? The night walkers. So there's just like a lot of similarities that if you really enjoyed Game of Thrones and you like romance, I would definitely recommend this. I'm happy to say that this book is only these characters in this book. So our main characters, Madoc and Yvain, this is their book. The next book is not about them, and I really appreciate that because I don't want more drama in their relationship. But yeah, so I really enjoyed this book. I'm definitely giving it 5 stars. Is it for everyone? Absolutely not. I did say earlier that like for me Game of Thrones is a little too much. It's too violent, it's too graphic. It's too much for my sensitive soul. And this is a lot less violent, and I mean, yes, there are fight scenes, but there are not as many. This book is really just like traveling to get to a certain point, and then the very last maybe 100 pages have a lot of battle in it. I mean, like they do have some fight scenes here and there, but they're not like overly graphic. I mean, there are some parts where like the warriors, the Parsathians, do wear like claws, and so they kind of rip people's throats out. So I mean, just like there are some graphic elements, and if you are really sensitive, I wouldn't read this. But if you want a less graphic version of Game of Thrones, so it's very good. I will say that like the ending is very like, if you read historical romance, that's kind of a similar vibe to that. So yes, definitely recommend. Really enjoyed it. Will be continuing in the series 100%. Like usually it takes me forever to finish series. I'm gonna put the next book on hold at the library now. So very good. And so in order to end this video on a happy note, I'm gonna talk about kind of why I decided to leave the library now, and then later I'm just gonna, wrap up the video with what was my last day like and fun stuff like that. So I have been part-time for the last 4+ years at the library. If you don't know this, librarianship is probably one of the most competitive fields out there, and you might be surprised by that. But the position that is like the natural progression of what I'm in now, so the first full-time position that I would apply for, is probably the most competitive position for librarians in the state where I live. I recently applied for a position where there were 100 applicants. So just giving that kind of as a standing point, like, it's very competitive. And so the past few years, I've been doing things that I should be doing in order to, get, a position. And I just feel like my system is relies on favoritism, and that as a part-time employee, I don't get benefits. They don't pay me, they don't give me health care. The only thing that I get as a benefit is sick and safe leave, and they only did that because it's now a requirement. It is a state law, so I don't get benefits. And part of the reason that I didn't get an interview for the last position is because I wasn't basically already doing the job. And for me, I get there's the, you need to go above and beyond to show that you're the right person for this role, but to me, as a part-time employee who's not getting healthcare or any other benefits, I'm not gonna do more than what I'm getting paid for, My job description does not require me to do those things, and so I'm not going to do them, because if I do them, I should be getting paid more. I should be getting freaking healthcare. So that's one reason why I just decided to leave, because it's so competitive, and I could wait, I could stay a few more years, but that's not real life, I need a full-time job. I need freaking healthcare. So that's definitely probably the biggest reason. I need a full-time job. I need healthcare. I need benefits, I can't tell you how many people, which is also super annoying, oh, are you actually interested in that job? I'm just the gall, the audacity. Am I sad that I'm leaving the library? Hell yes. I love my job. I love helping people. I love planning and presenting programs. I love talking about books, with customers and with my coworkers. That is the tea. That's why I'm leaving the library. Nothing specifically to do with libraries in general. I'm not talking about this to say, these are reasons you should not be a librarian. No, definitely not. If you want to be a librarian, just know that it's highly, highly competitive, and it might take you a very long time to get a job that you actually want. And again, I don't say that to discourage you, I just say that to be pragmatic. I'm excited for my last day. I'm excited that I am leaving the library before we let customers back in. I'm really looking forward not having to work with customers face to face. Not that I really mind it, it's just right now during the pandemic I certainly mind it, but it's just, I feel like it causes burnout so easily, having to, basically babysit adults. So I'm just really happy that I don't have to do that anymore. And I mean babysit adults, not with people who need, care. I mean adults who are fully functioning and still act like children. Oh, maybe I should talk about some fun stories at the library. I once had a customer, he was probably in his 50s, and he was there every single morning. He'd help a lot of customers. I think he was there trying to help them get jobs, which is a great job, you go. But there was one time where he was speaking on speakerphone in the library, and it was very loud. Speakerphone is very obnoxious, and nobody wants to hear your conversation. So I went over to him and was like, I'm sorry, sir, you can't have a conversation on speakerphone in the library. You can either take it, to the lobby or outside, or you can just take it off speakerphone. And so I walk away, and he comes up to the desk where I'm now standing, and he's like, what's the difference between me being on speakerphone and this kid that's running around? I was like, first of all, you're a freaking adult, and you know the difference between right and wrong and how to follow directions. I also had a phone customer who, she was looking up this ice cream brand, and she asked what was so big about it, and when I looked it up, it said it was made with goat's milk, and she was like, no, that's just dumb, it's not made with goat's milk. I'm just like, Lady, I'm reading off their freaking website. Same lady also asked me once how she could environmentally, ethically cremate her cat. We have one customer who calls almost every day to ask for women's phone numbers. So many fun things. Being a library worker, I feel like a lot of people think like, oh, you work at a library, you must read all the time. No, I'm not actually allowed to read at work. So funny. Yeah. So I'm just glad that I don't have to deal with people face to face, that I don't have to be yelled at to my face that I'm too inexperienced. If you have any fun library stories, please tell me. They're so fun. I'm gonna go and do some work, and then I have to go into work, and see you later. Hello everyone, it is now Friday evening. I got back maybe an hour ago from hanging out with my sister and my cousin. We had our book club discussion today for the Song of Achilles, and then we also, we had dinner, and then we went to Barnes & Noble. I'm gonna do a quick book haul, and then we'll talk about my last day. First, really quickly, the books that I checked out at the library today. Because we had it on the shelf, I decided to check out the second book in the A Gathering of Dragons series, A Touch of Stone and Snow. It's the sequel to A Heart of Blood and Ashes. So I'm really excited to start reading that. I might actually start reading that tonight, I don't know. And then I also picked up Real Life by Brandon Taylor, which is one of the books in one of the reading challenges that I'm doing for the year. So I saw it on the shelf and I figured, why not? And then for my Barnes & Noble book haul, I picked up Graceling by Kristen Kishore. I was never really interested in reading the series until they redid the covers, and I absolutely love it. And then I think Reagan from Peruse Project did a vlog not so long ago. She described it in a much more interesting way to me than I've heard before. And then, because we all know that I love fantasy romance, I picked up Jade City by Fonda Lee, which I know is not technically a fantasy romance, but I heard that there are some steamy scenes in here, and it's literally the only reason I picked up this book. So I'm really interested in this, as I think it is a Japanese-inspired fantasy, which is interesting. Honestly, every time I look at this cover and see the name, I always think of The Wizard of Oz. And I don't know, is that just me? Is that weird? And then a book that I never intended to read. I picked up House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. If you don't know, Kayla from Books and Lala is hosting for her, what is it called? Literally Dead Book Club. She is reading House of Leaves for this month, or the discussions in April. I don't know. I don't know the specifics. I don't usually tend to do her book club because it's horror and thrillers, which I don't tend to read. And I never really wanted to read this because just flipping through it, it seemed to me that it's not very accessible to people with disabilities, though my sister said that she was recommended it by someone who has ADHD, and that they said that it was a great book for them to read. So I guess, for some people it's fantastic, but the way that it's written, and some of the pages are upside down, and the font's all different sizes, to me that's just not very accessible for some people, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I never wanted to pick this up. But the way she described it in her March wrap-up just made me so intrigued. I am so interested in this book now, and I will warn you, if you buy this book and then walk around Barnes & Noble for an hour, just be warned that your arm will be a little tired. This book is so freaking heavy. I really need to weigh this book and tell you how much this book weighs. But if you don't know anything about this book, I don't really want to tell you that much, because for one, I don't really know much about it. I just know that it's about found footage in a house, or of a house or something, and then there are footnotes from some person who's responding, reacting, whatever, and then footnotes to those footnotes. I think I'll try to leave Kayla's March wrap-up in the description box and the timestamp to where she talks about this book, because it's just like, it's very interesting. For my sister, I was like, we're probably not going to read this for book club, so we're gonna try to just finish it this year. I don't know when I'm gonna start it, but anyway, I bought this. And okay, let's go ahead and wrap up this vlog and my last week as a librarian. It's such a weird feeling starting a new job after, like, I've worked in a library for so long, and I should be more emotional and more nervous just by, like, who I am. But, you know, I was recently put on medication for anxiety and depression, and I think it's helping me so much. Like, not only is it helping me, like, not feel like an absolute mess right now, but it, like, gave me the, like, motivation, like, the desire to actually apply for a new job. For the past 2.5, almost 3 years, I've been telling my therapist, complaining to her every single appointment that I hate my job and I want to get a new job, but I never do it. I never look for a new job. I started, you know, working a second job at Barnes & Noble, and it was absolutely terrible. So just from the feeling that I had, like, finally being ready to move on is just like just a product of me finally managing my anxiety and depression, and I feel like that is making me more emotional than, like, actually leaving my current job. So yeah, today was a very interesting day. It's kind of strange, like, being a part-time employee, ending your job and going into a new career, because I'm just like, there's literally nothing I can do today except, like, actual specific tasks that I'm only scheduled, like, 2 hours out of the 4 hours I'm there for. Like, there's nothing for me to do. So I was just like, well, I'm not gonna go shelf read, because who shelf reads on their last day? And also my back hurts, so standing at the shelf doesn't really help. And then also I'm just like, well, I could check my email, but what's the point? So, like, scrolled through it, like, things that I could reply to is like, oh, good luck with that, or, you know, like, things like that. Like, sure, I could do that, or I could go on Goodreads and just write reviews for books that I've read in the past couple of months, which is pretty much what I did. And then I took a ton of selfies and filmed a ton of, like, tiny little clips that I'll go ahead and insert now. So yeah, that's what I did today. I mean, and it was really weird, and it was very emotional because, like, there are certain people that I really do enjoy working with, but it was a nice day. It was nice to see my coworkers for, I'm not gonna say the last time, because, like, I plan on using that library as a customer all the time, so they'll probably be seeing me every week and still be sick of me. But yeah, it was really fun. It was just a great day, and then it was also a great day afterwards with my sister and my cousin, and we talked about books and we talked about work. Just to wrap up this vlog, I'm no longer a librarian, and that's really sad, and I hate that I can no longer say that I'm a librarian, but I'm a booktuber, so there you go. Thanks for coming along with me on my last week as a librarian, and listening to me rattle on about books that you may or may not care about. If you have any questions about librarianship, please ask. I'll reply to what I can. Or if you're a librarian yourself, or have ever worked in a library, please tell me all of your crazy library stories. I'm done. I'm gonna stop talking now before I lose my voice. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you can support me so I can make more videos. I hope that you had a fantastic day wherever you are, and I'll see you in a new video soon. Bye!